Good evening, fight fans. We are back with another alternative boxing commentary right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. And I am said Radulich, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich to you. And I am joined by the 411 coverage god and host of Damn You Hollywood, Mr. Robert Winfree. How do you do, sir?
I thought your name was Mark, not Said, but okay, Said.
No, Said.
Okay, Said.
Yes.
Actually, wouldn't that be Saeed?
Said's dead. Zed's dead, baby. Zed's
S-A-I-D?
dead.
Pretty sure Saeed.
Saeed.
Saeed Radulich.
That's me, Mr. Muslim.
Boy, did I think I just offended like 3 different categories of people.
Indeed. All right, so tonight on the menu is the Fox broadcast of Caleb Plant versus Caleb Truax for the IBF Super Middleweight title. 1/4 of the Super Middleweight titles also held by Canelo, who holds the WBA Super and the WBC Super Middleweight title, and Billy Joe Saunders, who he will be fighting in May should he get past his mandatory at the end of February. And whoever wins that one will be holding 3/4 of the IBF Super Middleweight title, leaving only Caleb Plant out there. So what can you expect from Caleb Plant versus former Super Middleweight title holder Caleb Truax?
Truax is still very good, but he's a little bit past his prime. Like this represents kind of his last stand, potentially at the World Championship level, to be a legitimate player. Plant, by contrast, is a bit more proven, which is an odd thing to say, but he's also still kind of trying to really establish himself as champion. He wants to win here because a win here probably sets him up for a fight with Canelo, which would, of course, be the biggest payday of his career.
You know, I was thinking about that, and I want to throw this in the bed with Madonna and see if she'll sleep with it. You know,
the answer to that question is yes.
Is that too old of a reference? One of my friends said that to me many years ago.
Is.
Okay. Okay, so who would be Madonna in that particular scenario that the kids might actually understand what the hell I'm talking about?
Dude, I don't know.
Billie
Eilish?
Okay. Let me throw this in the bed with Billie Eilish and see if she'll sleep with it.
The answer's still yes, I'm pretty sure.
What about Lady Gaga? Doesn't matter.
I feel so old. Lady Gaga's not really with the kids anymore.
Goddamn kids and their rock and roll. So I was thinking, should Caleb Plant win tonight, which Smart Money says he will, and Canelo gets past Avril Lavigne, whoever he's fighting at the end of February, his mandatory, and then he fights Billy Joe Saunders in May, right? You figure Caleb Plant's probably going to do another Fox fight, so around that time. He's been pretty active. Fox seems to like him. PBC seems to like him. So
he's a good fighter. He's a fan-friendly fighter. I mean, he's not a balls out brawler, but he has a television-friendly style, all things considered.
Sure. So my thought here is that he'll probably do one more mandatory for the IBF.
Probably.
Which, if he wins that and Canelo unifies in May against Billy Joe Saunders...
Another probably.
I would imagine that they do a Fox pay-per-view probably in Q3 or Q4. What do you think?
Sounds about right. Yeah, you see at the moment here on the odds, Plant minus 2,500.
The smart money, eh?
So, for those unfamiliar with how those particular odds work, that's about 25 to 1.
Right. So as we start round 1 here, Caleb comes out jabbing. He's trying to go to the body early on here. I should use last names. Plant. Plant is going to the body.
Well, you will never be wrong saying Caleb's doing something.
Yes, this is an audio medium, and I will confuse people if I do that. Truax can tend to just sort of hang back and see what Plant is bringing forward. Plant very active in this round so far.
Just, getting the jab working, high-low, getting your reads, scoring some points. Yeah, he's really good about faking. He's gone to the body a few times now. Truax a little bit short on the counter combination. I think I'm a little bit behind you because I'm streaming this on my computer via the foxsports.com website. And for some reason, a lot of terrestrial broadcasters, when they stream stuff, it's a little bit behind their more live broadcasts. So if I'm just a hair behind you, that would be why.
Okay. So Caleb Plant has got some pretty impressive hand speed.
Yeah, he's quick. Look, of all of the current super middleweight champions, he's generally figured to be the one that'll give Canelo the most trouble. He's got, like you said, he's got hand speed, he's got good power. He's not afraid to fight long, both, in terms of fighting long relative to his opponent and deep into a fight. Still would favor Canelo, all things considered, in that particular fight because, Canelo. But it's not Plant. I have kind of come around to the notion that Plant offers the stiffest test to Canelo if we're talking, champions at 168.
I'll tell you what, he's more active, I think, in this first round than the last time he graced us with his presence on Fox PBC against Feigenbutz. I remember that fight very distinctly, and he fought a workman's pace. It wasn't the most interesting of fights I've ever seen, which is why I kind of chortled when you were like, oh, he's got a very fan-friendly style. Not that night he didn't. He was very deliberate.
I seem to recall him... Wasn't he coming off a bit of a layoff for that fight?
He might have been, yeah.
Or maybe not a huge layoff in terms of, months off, but he had... that fight was kind of a... get your legs back under you kind of fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he fought it in a very, I'm getting my legs back under me kind of way.
Sure. But he has definitely picked up the pace to start off this fight. An easy round for him, 10-9. Truax didn't fire back much.
No, you're at the end of the round. Yeah, I am. Wow, I don't know why their stream is so far behind. I'm like 20 seconds behind you.
Oh, yeah, I'm watching this terrestrially on...
Yeah, no, look, no worries. Lest anyone accuse me of this being a euphemism, no, this is entirely legal on my end. Fox Sports is happy to stream this stuff to anyone. I pay for cable. I just don't have a television in this particular room, so I'm on my computer.
You're not be sailing the high seas tonight, eh?
No, I am not. You're a silly man.
So anyway, we started talking at the start of the round, and while we have a break here, Canelo has a 2-fight deal with DAZN. He's no longer with Golden Boy. He's his own man now, his own promotion.
At the moment, he's not with DAZN. He's just with Eddie Hearn.
Right. And so, theoretically, he should be... Once he gets past Billy Joe Saunders and he's done his 2-fight deal with DAZN, after that, he should be free to be able to sign with... at least for a one-time fight with, or a 2-fight deal with PBC and Fox.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. If that assumes Canelo is serious in his quest to unify all the belts at 168.
Well, why wouldn't he be?
Who knows? I mean, look, there's any number of things that might change over the course of the next 8 to 12 months.
Well, I mean, the sanctioning bodies, as we have learned, can really upend an opportunity to unify all the belts with their mandatory challengers. And so he's doing a mandatory for the WBA, WBC at the end of February. But, then if he wins the WBO might be like, well, no, we've got a mandatory lined up for you. Don't take any other fights. Oh, they are starting to brawl here.
We're going at it this round. Truax decided he did not care for that first 3-minute segment, and he's trying to push things. Unfortunately, he's running into a lot of stuff on the way in.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he feels like if he doesn't go hard and go early, he's going to go out sooner than later.
Probably. Look, relative to your previous point, I imagine most of those sanctioning bodies will be a bit more amenable to, Canelo.
Mm-hmm.
just because of his star power. Part of the other problem when it comes to mandatories like that is whether or not the challenger is willing, whether or not there's an offer of step-aside money or the challenger is just not willing to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some times when a challenger is, offered the cash to step aside, let me pursue the bigger fight or this other interest, and the challenger goes, no, I want the belts. And the guy goes, fine, you can fight somebody else for it, you bum.
Yes,
I don't care about the belt.
And this is how we end up with 107 interim champions.
That is correct.
Unless you're the current... But by the way, I saw yet another tweet about don't recognize the WBA. Like, that's not just the WBN, who I got yelled at for sharing that tweet earlier. I've seen that now on a couple of people's Twitter feeds. So there.
Dude, you and I mocked them relentlessly last night for a reason.
Well, that's why I shared the news item that I shared, but then people got pissy.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the WBN is not exactly
it's not ESPN.
It's not exactly the most well-regarded.
Fair enough.
I
I feel like so we're not really calling the fight here, but I'll tell you what, they've been exchanging some fairly decent combinations between them.
They have. The problem Truax is running into is he's not able to really kind of crash distance into the pocket effectively.
Caleb Plant just landed a serious left hook.
Yeah, Truax keeps running into those when he's trying to come in. I mean, in that particular instance, it was less on the way in and more kind of on the reset. But Truax, he wants to get in close and try to ugly this up. Unfortunately, he's not quite the footwork and ring general that Caleb Plant is. You've seen Plant moving very, very well throughout the course of this fight thus far. I mean, again, we're 2 rounds in.
Oh, no, Caleb Plant has a lot of spring in his step tonight.
He's moving very well.
He is not moving at the deliberate pace he was moving during the Feigenboots fight. He is much snappier, much faster, much more dynamic.
Yeah, again, he's moving very well, not just with his hands, with his legs. He's not getting caught along the ropes. It's a really, really solid ring generalship from him thus far.
So I have a silly question for you, which demands
does
a silly answer.
Does not surprise me one bit.
What do you think they would have to do to get Canelo to fight in prime time?
Not on pay-per-view, just traditional Fox?
Yeah.
You would have to compensate him for whatever his loss of revenue would be for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I would assume for whatever they're paying for television rights to PBC, it just wouldn't be worth it.
They might shell out more money for a Canelo fight. To be abundantly clear, they might go to, Fox and go, hey, the biggest star in boxing is potentially willing to fight on primetime network television. It's going to cost you an arm, but we're going to get you an arm and a leg in return in terms of...
Do you think he'd be a ratings draw?
Yeah. Especially, some of this will also kind of depend on when they set it up, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other thing is if they're thinking he's a
star in boxing,
if they're thinking he's a ratings draw, they might potentially be able to charge more for ad revenue for ads. And I guess if you do, depending on how the math works out, someone might come to the conclusion that a primetime fight with the primetime star garners more in ad revenue than if we try to do this on pay-per-view. On the other hand, pay-per-views are like $70 to $100, so...
Nice stuff from Plant so far. He's threading the needle on his right hand quite well. You could also charge more for sponsorships, being on the... your logo on the canvas for this is not cheap to begin with. Your logo on the canvas for a Canelo fight on Fox, that's going to cost you more.
Sure. All right, well... with all due respect to Caleb Plant and Caleb Truax, let's focus on that now. We can worry about the potential of a Caleb Plant Canelo fight either on pay-per-view or on primetime television at a later date.
Truax just cannot adequately get by that jab of Saunders. It's really causing him problems. And then they wind up either all the way into the clinch where the referee will then have to break them up.
Caleb Truax just landed a good left on Plant's chin. He shook it off, but he tagged him good.
Yeah, Plant's getting a little bit sloppy with his defense. I mean, not the worst in the world, but he's relying on a couple of the same patterns, and I think Truax is starting to get a little bit of a read on that. You really shouldn't be that as predictable as he is. I mean, that said, Plant is still dishing out the lion's share of the beating here. He's working body to head very well. Good lead hand work. Truax is kind of in not full-on one-punch mode, but he's getting close to it.
All right, that's the end of the round. I would say it's another one for Plant, but it was much closer that time than it was in the previous round.
Only because of that one punch. Outside of that, again, very clearly a Plant round.
Mm-hmm.
It was boxing very, very well outside of the one scare moment.
So you haven't watched the earlier fights on the card, have you?
I have not. I've seen some of the highlights. Apparently there was a heavyweight that got just his soul uppercutted out of his body.
Yeah, it was the first fight on the main card that I was just going to reference. So, I don't remember the fella's name, but he got dropped once, got up, proceeded to rabbit punch the guy in the back of the head. Which
I saw that.
2 points were taken, and then he got punched in the chin. And then they stopped the fight, and rightly so. He stumbled when he got up, and the ref protected him for his own good, and he didn't seem to be in his right frame of mind to begin with. And then he was like, what the hell? Why are you stopping the fight? And the ref's like, shut up before I make this worse for you. And eventually he got, some professional composure, but not a good look to start the show.
I think, didn't the ref at one point say to him, you understand I'm gonna take your money?
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Follow my commands at all times. That includes shut up, shutting up. Ooh. Nice triple jab there from Truax. And we saw a lot of double jabs last night from Trevor Bryan in our previous alternative commentary, which you can find. We
saw a lot of something,
which you can find at the W2M network.
Yeah, again, we saw a lot of something. Plants. I don't want to say he's like walking away with this, but he is starting to really continue to distance himself. I mean, our current unofficial punch count at the moment is 43-10 in favor of the Macho Man with that color scheme, Caleb Plant.
Yeah, that is a rough, unfortunate color pattern. My goodness.
I don't know. I can live with it.
He looks like he walked out of the 80s. He's got a lot of neon going on.
Yeah, says the man who still fetishizes the Ultimate Warrior.
Shut up.
I'm right.
I'll fetishize what I want, thank you very much.
I am not shaming you for your kinks, sir. I'm simply noting them.
We were talking about they just did a prostitution sting because we have the Super Bowl coming up, so we have a lot of that sort of thing happening. And so we got a bunch of people got busted, and they were paraded through the jail today. And apparently one of the guys...
Nice left uppercut from Plant.
...was paying one of the prostitutes to wear his wife's dirty underwear.
If that's the worst thing that woman has ever been paid to do, she's...
Yeah, I actually said out loud, I'm like, hey, who are we to kink shame? Knock that off. Because everyone was, chortling about it.
I mean, as far as... Ooh. Yeah, Plant's left is really starting to do a number on Truax. I mean, at this point, again, we're looking at I believe these are somewhat unofficial punch count, but 52-12.
Oh, good left hand from Caleb Plant. It's starting to bloody up Caleb Truax. Yeah, he's all red. I'm starting to see blood around the nose. This is not looking good for Truax. This is going to end up being an early night.
Yeah, as soon as Truax's trunk movement starts slowing down, he's leaning to get away from Plant's left hook when Plant uses it in combination. And that's going to backfire on him in a hurry if he doesn't get his feet moving along with it.
They went shoulder to shoulder there in that last exchange, and Caleb Truax with a mean uppercut. I thought he was going to drop Plant there for a moment.
Well, again, Plant's getting a little bit predictable on his dipping. And Truax is not a chump.
We see the replay there. We see the uppercut that tagged him good, followed by the left hook. Straight right. Then there was that other left that nailed him directly, Truax directly in the nose. And they didn't show the replay for when Truax got him back, though. But it was a good punch.
Well, it was a decent uppercut in close. It didn't warrant your reaction, I don't think, but it was a good punch.
Okay, whatever.
So, Plant's still pitching a shutout in terms of rounds.
Yes.
I mean, again, not perfect, but he's winning all of these. And this is going from bad to worse for Truax. He's having moments of hope, but not much more than moments.
Were you able to catch any of the Glory 77 card that aired earlier today on Fight?
I have not yet, no.
Pretty decent fights. One guy threw a flying knee, missed the guy, and went over the top rope and eliminated himself from the Royal Rumble.
I fully anticipate that's a thing we'll be seeing, yes.
No joke, though, he really hurt himself. Like, I think they almost called the fight.
It amazes me that a bunch of the old purists still insist that the ring is the best way to hold combat sports. It's really not. Again, you do it for like tradition and history and whatnot, but yeah, it's less of an issue in boxing. But yeah, kickboxing.
Like
people fall out of the ring, man.
He did.
That's a long fall.
He threw a flying knee. The guy shuffled out of the way. His leg draped over the top rope, and then he went ass over tea kettle.
And yeah, that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, no, he looked pretty messed up. I thought he was really, really hurt. He ended up getting up and finishing the fight, but not a good look.
Caleb Plant back to just really solid lead hand work, moving very well around the ring. Truax trying to get his legs back under him. He's not wobbled or anything, but his mobility, you can see him kind of trying to shake his legs out a little bit. Like, okay, let's get a little spring back in the step.
And Plant just walked into a jab there.
Truax doesn't really seem... I mean, he's got enough power to kind of keep Plant honest, but it seems like Plant is not terribly concerned about what's coming back at him.
No.
And his defense thus far has continued to be quite good. The unofficial punch count here is telling a very depressing story for Mr. Truax.
Truax tries to clinch and ugly it up. Ref breaks it up almost immediately.
Yeah, this ref has a real fast trigger on his clinch breaks thus far. He's not let them... Some of that's because when they clinch, they both kind of go to the position that says, hey, we're not going to keep fighting here, which warrants the break, but...
So Caleb threw a hook and sidestepped around Truax. He didn't get quite what he wanted with it. Good left hand there from Plant. Once again, hit Truax square in the button. Hit him again. Truax starts to stumble a bit. Not looking good for Truax.
No, this will probably end in the next 2 to 3 rounds at this rate.
And that'll be good for Caleb Plant. I mean, he needs a good, solid, exciting win on prime time. If they really want to make him a thing, and make it worth Canelo's while sometime in Q3 or Q4.
Again, you also have to remember, Plant's... This is only his 21st fight, I think. So he's still, while he's had a lot of success at a high level, he's still, all things considered, a somewhat young-ish kind of fighter. So there's some miles to be gained from him, promotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of all the primetime Fox fights, they've done Kanaki and I think Hellenius once or twice, some combination of both of those guys, and they've done Caleb Plant. This is one of their go-to fighters for these primetime Fox cards.
It's fairly easy to see why. Again, he's having a very, very good performance here. So he's clearly a very talented guy. He's young enough to stick around for a bit, so you're not really in danger of, well, sure, we'll sign you to a 5-fight deal for a lot of money, and then 2 fights in, you just start going, oh, what are we paying for? They still can a little bit more of a sedated round there in the 5th, but Plant is just slowly breaking Truax down, just pretty relentlessly with his lead hand. It's some really nice, just fundamental boxing going on.
Nice thing about this fight also is because every single fight that was supposed to be on today, other than the Glory Kickboxing, fell apart. So they've got this night to themselves. They have no competition. They don't even have competition from the UFC tonight, which is nice.
No, there is no UFC event on this particular evening. Otherwise, I'd be doing that.
Yes, you would. Good uppercut there from Plant. Not as heavy or as deep as I would have liked, but still a good shot.
He's content to just kind of keep chipping away at Truax, and to be fair, there's not really a lot of reason for him to go Donkey Kong on this guy. He's winning very handily.
Yeah, Truax is, not in the fight in terms of scores, and in matter of fact, he's deep out, but he's still going toe to toe with Plant.
He's still engaging. He's still intelligently fighting. When you say he's still here and fighting, he's not just a heavy bag swinging on occasion. He's cognizant. He's making decisions. He's trying to make adjustments. He's just thoroughly outmatched at this point.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to overcome. We just see here popping up on the screen, Caleb Truax just landed 5 punches in the previous round. That would be the 5th. That is the most punches he landed in a single round all fight.
So in the Feigenboots fight, Caleb Plant did a lot of bending at the waist. I hadn't seen him doing it until just now.
He's been a lot more, I think, kind of since one of those uppercuts earlier in the fight. He's been a little bit more judicious about employing that particular strategy here. But he's
Truax very content to try to clinch up and do some infighting.
Well, that's kind of his only hope right here, is if he can get into the metaphorical phone booth and make a run at getting Plant to fight this thing in close proximity, kind of forehead to forehead.
Well, if he's going to do that, I'd like to see him put a little bit more twist on his upper body and dig some of those punches into Caleb Plant's ribcage.
Yeah, he's not been able to commit too much to his body work, and Plant's been rib roasting him for most of this fight. But that is something. If that's the direction he wants to take it, he's got to start trying to break down Plant. And unfortunately, he's 6 rounds into a 12-round fight and has not been able to kind of facilitate any of that.
Shortly before the round ended, Caleb Truax ducked into, they're showing it on the replay, ducked into a couple of punches. There it is again. Boom. Oh, look at the blood fly.
Yeah, his nose is, it's not, I don't think it's badly broken, but it's leaking a lot. Plant's lead hand is has really done a lot of work tonight. And his defense has really held up as well. We've mentioned Truax hasn't landed a whole lot, but that's not to say he hasn't thrown, because he's thrown a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
He just can't find the target.
So next Saturday is Overeem versus Volkov, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm sure you will be watching.
No, I'll probably end up watching that. I think there's some British boxing on during the day. I'm not quite sure when it's going to wrap up. I think that's I have to look at the calendar again.
I said I'm sure you will be watching because you go out of your way to watch Overeem.
Yes, I will always watch the Ream when available.
And, his fight with Volkov should be a decent one.
And then Friday night, as we all know, was Knucklemania.
Do we all know that?
Starring the one and only, the adorable Paige Van Zandt.
Whose husband is probably going to divorce her after this fight.
Aw, that's not nice. All right. So, there, Caleb Plant ducked low, tried to go to the body, and he ate some punches for his troubles.
Yeah, a little bit. It's even when Truax lands, he's not seeming to do a whole lot with his connections. It's, jeez, that left hand from Plant is just making Truax's night miserable. He just can't seem to find a way to deal with that thing.
Ugh. It's just funny, as you say that again, Plant just snaps that left off.
It's been a really good weapon for him this fight. Again, you can kind of see why, not just in terms of entertainment value, which this fight, again, not a barn burner, but certainly a very watchable fight.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But if you look at the technique and the application, you can see why a lot of people are thinking that Plant and Canelo would be a heck of a contest.
Especially because Canelo tends to be kind of a slow starter.
Yeah, a little bit. We see Truax there missing some more punches.
Oh, the good 1-2 there from Caleb Plant. Left hand just rocks. This isn't looking good for Truax. That's twice now he's been hit and his head snapped back.
Yeah, that's a real bad sign.
It's usually a sign you're going down soon.
Well, he's been just kind of beat up consistently throughout this fight so far. I mean, Plant's landed, 80-some-odd punches?
Mm-hmm. And they just showed the unofficial scorecards. Obviously, he has 10s across the board.
Yeah.
Not a single round has gone to Truax.
I don't even think there's an argument for Truax winning a round.
No.
I mean, again, he's had a couple of moments, but he's not had anything like sustained success.
And to Caleb Plant's credit, he hasn't taken a round off.
No.
He hasn't given any of these away. He's been going full tilt from round one.
Yeah, there have been a couple of rounds, I think, that he's kind of modulated his pace, but that doesn't mean, like you said, that doesn't mean taken off. It means, okay, I'm going to ease up on the gas a little bit here because I don't want to potentially get in trouble later.
Right.
Which is the mark of a smart fighter. Nobody can go, full speed, full power the whole time. It's just not really feasible. Ooh, that jab, man. This is a nice jab. To Truax's credit, he's hung in there. He's taken a beating. He's still hanging in there and still putting forth again, when I say putting forth effort, I don't just mean that he's conscious. I mean, he's still trying to think through the problem. But we are kind of getting towards the point where you have to wonder, is this really worth him taking more abuse?
Well, when we were talking about the Stavern Bryant fight last night, I said Stavern has lost every round, maybe all except one. I think there was one that we gave Stavern.
One or two. Somewhere
in the middle of the fight, we had given him at least one round, and we said he's losing this fight on points, but he's not taking enough damage to where I think there's no point in continuing the fight anymore. He's just We made the argument that he wasn't taking enough damage that it was necessary to end the fight. And, big right hand from Truax. And I'm not yet convinced that Truax is taking too much damage to where I would stop this fight as well. I mean, there's always the chance that he lucky punches Caleb.
That's a stupid argument. The whole he could always land a miracle shot is a stupid argument.
Okay, but is he taking enough damage to where you're starting to fear for the guy's safety?
Again, that's a difficult question. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying I would throw in the towel right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that we're in round 8. If there's been no substantive change in either the way this fight's going or some indicators about how it might go,
right,
by the time you get to the end of round 10,
mm-hmm.
I think that's a conversation you need to have with yourself.
So you're in the corner for this guy. He's fighting for a world title, and yes, he's lost the fight on points, but if you're in his corner, are you thinking to yourself right now, there's no way he knocks this guy out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, what evidence is there to indicate that would be a legitimate possibility? So, again, I'm not saying right now. I'm saying if we, I mean, you mentioned he hit a good right hand at the start of this round, and what happened? Nothing.
And I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but I'm thinking about Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. One, where Tyson Fury was winning in my opinion, was winning that fight, and then Deontay Wilder dropped him late in the fight.
Okay.
And there was the thought that Tyson Fury wasn't going to get back up again.
Caleb Truax is not Deontay Wilder.
Who is?
I mean, even for super middleweights, he's not Deontay Wilder.
No, but my point is, you never know. And you said, okay, that's a stupid argument, but
Deontay Wilder in their first fight also did not take enough sustained damage to make you question whether or not this was a good idea. He lost. He was losing the fight technically, but he was never in a lot of sustained physical. He never took a lot of sustained physical damage.
And you're saying that Truax is.
Compare that with Caleb Truax, who has taken nigh on triple-digit strikes at this point, and who, when he has landed punches, has had essentially no significant impact on what Caleb Plant is doing. If any of these punches had rattled Plant and got him to back off the pressure, sort of rethink what he's doing, slowed him down, maybe you could make the argument. Truax hit him flush twice this round. And what's changed?
So we're in a commercial break, which means we don't get to hear the corners. But what do you think Truax's corner is telling him, based on your observations? Because you seem to think that, like, this at this point they should just throw the towel in and save him from further damage.
If I'm in his corner, I tell him, there were some good moments in that round. Believe it or not, I still think Plant took it, but. Probably his best round.
Mm-hmm.
I tell him you've got to do some more of that, and I tell him straight up, if we can't if rounds start going worse for you than that, badly, I'm gonna stop it. You tell the guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking at his face. His eyes aren't all that puffy. I mean, his nose is a little messed up, but I'm looking at his eyes. He's not cut too bad.
No, I don't think he's cut at all.
No, I think that's why I'm arguing this point with you. As I feel like you've written him off, and to the degree in which I agree with you in the sense that he's obviously lost every round up to this point, sure, but he's not all that cut up. He's not all that damaged. He's still actively fighting. Give the guy at least a little bit of a chance here to
I would not
finish the fight.
I would not have thrown the towel in on the 8th. I would have told him, look, if this starts going worse for you than that, we have to consider this.
Mm-hmm.
And to his credit, he's come out and in this round, and he's putting forth a lot of effort, and that's to be commended. It's also not going to help you when you're 45 and can't remember where your keys are or your children's name.
Okay. Good point. Speaking of good points, that was a good counter left there from Caleb Plant.
I mean, again, the guy's taken over 100 blows to the body and head.
And he just took a big straight right also.
And he's landed a fourth of that in going back the other way? He's landed, less than 30 strikes, I think, unofficially?
Mm-hmm.
So I put it to you. You've seen him land on Plant and have no significant impact on how the fight's going. He's taken a lot of blows. Why are you sending him back out there to get hit more when he's given no indication that that his power, on the intermittent chance he's able to land it, has been able to affect anything?
I'm not going to argue with you further on this because I know that ultimately the corner should make the best decision for the fighters, because my first thought was, well, if I'm the fighter, I don't want this to end, but that's why you're corners.
The fighter never does.
Yeah, I mean, and I get that. That's why I was like, you know what? I don't really have a good counter argument at this point, because my only argument left is, well, what fighter would want this to end in the condition that he's in? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, fighters will go over the falls in a barrel if you let them.
I mean, you just mentioned a guy who took a flying leap over the top rope, crashed to the floor, and still went, with my bruised up knees potentially torn up, you know what, sure, I can finish this out.
Yeah.
I just tumbled my own height to the ground. I mean, again, he's not a heavy bag, but you do just kind of have to ask yourself at this point, we're at the end of the 9th here.
So they're announcing a super middleweight fight February 27th, the night of the Canelo fight, as a matter of fact. Anthony Durrell versus Tyrone Davis. Well, that'll be fun. We'll have a Canelo fight on DAZN, and then we'll have Anthony Durrell in prime time.
That'll be Canelo, is going to win the ratings interest on that and whatnot.
Well, for those people who have DAZN or pay-per-view.
That's true. Now again, to Truax's credit, lest it sound like I'm just burying the guy.
Yeah, I was like, poor Truax. Jesus.
Look, I didn't say the man, shouldn't be in there. He's not a heavy bag. He's still... When I say trying, I don't just mean in the sense that he is physically capable of throwing a punch and does so once every, 20 to 40 seconds. He's still moving. He's still seeking the fight. He's still thinking it through.
Round 10.
He's just wildly overmatched, and at this point I do start to question the point of sending him back out there to take 20 more subconcussive blows to the head before losing a clear-cut unanimous decision.
I haven't seen the referee get involved too much in this either.
No, he's, again, just breaking some... there were a couple of clinches he broke up in the middle rounds, but both men have
largely stayed out of it.
Both men have, given him every reason to stay out of it, and, kudos to them for that. Plenty of people in Truax's position here would be fighting a bit more dirty than he is. Truax's right eye starting to swell up a little bit. Not fight ending, but you can see it. As Plant continues to thread the needle on that one, too. And just his jab is really just making Truax's life, again, miserable.
Double jab from Truax there. Doesn't really hit anything.
No, Plant's done a really good job. I mean, of the 32 punches that Truax has allegedly landed, maybe half of those were, good punches. The others like technical lands, not necessarily, a good punch.
Left hand snaps Truax's head back again.
Ooh. Yeah, and his right's fine. And Plant's right is starting to get more involved in what he's doing now. Yeah, this is just not getting any better for Truax as this goes on.
In Truax's defense, such as it is, he's still fighting. He's still standing toe to toe with Plant. Yeah, he's taking a lot of punishment, but he's giving it some of it back.
Yeah, again, if you want to make the argument that...
Look at that. A nice 1-2 from Truax.
Again, the man, he's not a heavy bag, and I'm certainly not yelling at the ref to stop the fight. Because the considerations that would go into stopping this would purely be from Truax's corner at the moment, not necessarily from the referee.
Right.
But I just kind of wonder what the point is of... I mean, he can't, at this point, numerically, he can't win a decision.
No.
He's got to score a finish.
That boat has sailed.
And so he has to score a finish, and you have to start weighing the likelihood of that outcome with the physical abuse he's taking.
Well, one of the themes of this fight, and we've mentioned it again and again and again, but to be clear, Truax's biggest deficit in this fight has been the lack of volume that he's thrown. And at this point, if he wants to get a knockout over Caleb Plant, he has to pick up the volume. I mean, we're going into...
He's not going to one and done this guy, not with his power.
No.
This is going to take a big sustained flurry.
Well, if he's got the gas, he's got to go into round 11 and just throw high volume.
Yeah, he's got 6 minutes. He's got to be at the highest punch count he can possibly throw for 2 rounds.
Yeah. I mean,
that's all he's got.
If you're in his corner, it's funny, throughout this entire broadcast, they haven't really focused on his corner. No, they keep going, whenever they come out of commercial, they keep going back to Caleb Plant's corner.
Well, they know where the interest lies.
Yeah, but it'd be nice. I mean, granted, I don't have the volume up, but...
And hang on. To be fair, I completely agree with you. I like hearing both corners.
Yeah.
But if I'm the production guy and I have to weave commercial breaks into, this entire broadcast, and when we come out of commercial, we're going to have 10 seconds with a corner. Do you want to hear Truax or do you want to hear Plant?
Well, if I'm in Truax's corner, I'm telling him, punch yourself out. Just go at this.
Yeah, you tell 100%. You tell this guy, if this goes the distance, you can't win.
Right.
The only hope you have is the knockout.
Yeah. Punch till you're tired. Punch till your arms hurt.
Punch till you can't punch anymore.
Yep.
Because Plant has landed unofficially 109 more strikes than Caleb Truax has. Now, if you want to find a detriment in that for Caleb Plant, he hasn't really hurt Truax all that often. He snapped his head back a few times, but he's never wobbled. He's never visibly wobbled him. And if you're landing that many punches, you'd like to think 1 or 2 of them could kind of shock the guy's system.
Unofficial scorecard has it 100-90.
That's about right after 10.
Yeah.
I mean, even the moments that Truax has had, it's been just that, a moment, and then the other 2 minutes and 40 seconds goes the way of Caleb Plant by a wide enough margin to make up for his one punch.
Yeah, he's still trying to be too cagey, trying to. You need to be Roadhouse in there, Truax.
Yeah, I don't know if he's just content to absorb, again, 20 more subconcussive blows in exchange for not getting knocked out, but he can't win like this. He just can't.
No.
And if he doesn't have another switch to go to, then there's no point to this.
Conversely, Caleb Plant is not coasting to victory. He's still actively working.
He's only coasting in the sense that he's doing what has been successful for him this entire fight.
Yes.
And, I mean, he could give away these last 2 rounds and win walking away, numerically. And he's not doing that. He is still fighting to win in the exact same way he has been winning up to this point, and that is commendable.
Right, and he's not even really circling away from him. He's the one advancing. Like, in the Feigen Boots fight, he tended to fight off his back foot, and early on in this fight, he was still doing the same thing. He was circling and fighting off the back foot. Now, he's bringing the fight to Truax.
I wonder if he's not, and again, we're going to be getting into the last round here shortly, unless he scores the knockout with a couple of seconds left in the 11th. I wonder if he's going to make a concerted effort to kind of try and finish in the last round. Or if he's just going to do, again, what he's been doing this whole time, which is effective offensive and defensive boxing, high work rate, and just kind of bust the guy up.
Well, we're in Truax's corner now. I guess they must have heard us.
And I assume the message is, you're doing great, champ. It's either that or they're telling him the truth, and this is it. You got to knock this guy out.
Yeah.
You got 3 minutes. You empty the gas tank because anything less, and you've got no hope.
Right. Cock that right out there. Just throw 2, 3, 4 rights in a row. They're not all going to, he's a good evasive fighter, Caleb Plant, so they're probably not going to all hit, but he nails 1 or 2 of those and nails Plant good. He might get himself an opening that he can finish him up on.
The other problem that Truax is running into is down to his ring craft and his footwork. He has been pretty comprehensively outmaneuvered the entire fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real tough deficit to overcome going into the last round when you need a knockout and the other guy's still fleet of foot enough to just stay away from you, keep you at bay with a good jab, and just kind of point and laugh at you as you desperately wade forward. It's a rough spot to be in.
Good combination there from Plant.
And again, if you wanted to knock Plant for anything, it would be a lack of power, I think, at this particular juncture. You'd like to have seen him do some more damage with as many punches as he's landed. Again, just a few of them should have potentially had a more visible impact on what Truax is doing, and he hasn't quite found that.
I was thinking about Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev, and how Joshua started off, sort of a moderate pace. Started, and as the fight progressed on, and Pulev started to slow down, Joshua turned up the volume, and then eventually, and then he saw his opportunities and he ended up knocking Pulev out.
If Plant is pulling something like that again, we're getting into
well, that's my point.
This round,
he's waited too long to do that, is what I'm trying to say. Like, Joshua knew midway through the fight that Pulev was slowing down enough that he could be more aggressive. That's not happened tonight.
Well, we're also talking about 168 versus heavyweights.
Sure.
There again, just as a consideration, but Plant's landed some nice hooks in close this round. He's still boxing very well. The way his shoulder rolling, his footwork. It's been a really thorough performance out of Caleb Plant this fight.
We're down to less than a minute there, and Plant just kind of did some shuffling uppercuts there. A lot of very fast punching, not a lot of power there. Just sort of peppered him up with some taps hither and thither. We're down to almost 30 seconds left.
Yeah, and again, for the record, Plant and Canelo, I think, would be a very compelling fight.
Yeah.
Again, Plant may be one of the better pure boxers at this weight class at the moment. Canelo certainly in contention for that particular discussion as well. And we do have Billy Joe Saunders.
Good left there. Yes, he has to actually get through Billy Joe Saunders first. And he also has to get through Avril Lavigne.
You're going to insult that poor gentleman. If you're going to say his name, say it correctly.
Yildirim, Yorkshire.
You were so close. One of your first two is close enough. Yeah, that guy is. That would be one of the biggest upsets in boxing history if he beats Canelo.
If the mandatory on the 27th beats Canelo, well, he'd have to shoot him first.
I'm not saying that's outside the realm of possibility. And look, when it comes to Billy Joe Saunders, I favor Canelo pretty significantly. Not like the kind of odds we saw here for this fight, but comfortably favor Canelo in that fight. So we expect just the clean sweep for Caleb Plant after that, as we have gone the distance here. And again, I do kind of question the wisdom of those last two rounds. It just doesn't strike me as necessary.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe he was showing them just enough that they felt like, there's an outside chance that he knocks him out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they were saying in their corner. So the other side of this might be, you don't, unless he's taking way too much damage or he's physically too cut up, they are on prime time, and I'm sure there's a consideration of we want to make the best, even in losing, we want to make the best showing we're humanly capable of, because we're on prime time. We're on a prime time Fox PBC card.
All right. Again, I'm not saying there's no argument for allowing the fight to continue. There pretty clearly is. I'm just giving voice to the opposite side of things as far as that goes.
And no, and look, you're making valid points. You've made valid points this entire commentary. I'm just at this point, I'm looking at, well, what's the counter argument? And the only other thing I can think of is, they may have thought like, we should probably stop this. There's no way that he's going to end up knocking him out. And as you said before, being dependent on a lucky punch is probably not a great idea. But
especially not when your lucky punch, when you've landed, it hasn't seemed to have done anything.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, you're in a situation where you're on Fox, you're in prime time. All eyes are on you. I think there's sort of you're expected to dance, monkey. Not.
That's a fair observation as well.
Not to mention the fact that the first two. I mean, that first fight was not a great look for PBC. That guy, I don't. that guy's never going to see the camera side of a fight again. The way he was behaving, and then the second fight was a first round knockout in a heavyweight brawl.
Look, we take those every chance we can get them because heavyweights. The longer they go, the worse it gets. By and large, very few exceptions to that. And the ones that are exceptions are the very best.
My point is that if you are directing this telecast, you just saw the first two segments of this broadcast not go very well. I think that there might have been some consideration of, hey, don't give this up, don't stop it, let if it goes the distance, it goes the distance. At least we gave him a show, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, again, if my concern is for the fighter, then the broadcasters and the network can take their concerns about that and shove it. They should have scheduled things better. Yeah, just again, a thorough. Plant kept a really high pace for this fight. We're getting some of the final numbers now at this point, and again, a fairly high pace for, especially for super middleweight, 168. Not the biggest guys in the world, but those are not small men.
No,
and he kept a very high pace.
All right. Well, that wraps up our broadcast here on the Radulich broadcast.
For the record, the unanimous decision does, in fact, go to Canelo. I mean, the Plant.
Wah, 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 wah.
So he retains his title. Again, might have to do one more mandatory before potentially getting into the Canelo sweepstakes. But if this was his kind of audition for, hey, give me a shot at the biggest star in boxing, could have done a lot worse. He's getting his hand checked out.
So that makes him 21-0. I would have to agree. If Canelo already has a fight booked for May, he's got to go one more time before they fight again in the fall or in the early holiday season. As for what's next in the world of combat sports, Friday night, it's all right for fights. We've got, as I said, Knuckle Mania. Friday.
You will be the only person watching that.
I will be there live. Thank you. That's February 5th.
I hope your COVID vaccine has taken effect, because you may as well just be in the Petri dish for that.
Shut up.
Just swimming in a pool full of it. Just.
Saturday night, February 6th, we've got Overeem versus Volkov. During the day on ESPN Plus, we have Kareem Guerfi versus Lee McGregor. And then if you've got the Fight app and you don't mind paying for it, Austin Trout's in action. He's taking on Garcia.
E. Austin Trout.
The Austin Trout. February 12th is nothing. February 13th, though, there's quite a lot going on. There's Josh Warrington versus Mauricio Lara. That's during the day. There's Diaz versus Rakhimov and Teixeira versus Castano on DAZN. That's actually the same night as the Impact pay-per-view, No Surrender. There's UFC 258, Usman versus Burns, which Robert will be covering.
258 is a pretty solid card, actually. Again, you've got Usman and Burns. I think that has, I believe that has Volkanovski and Ortega as the co-main.
And that'll be going up against Joe Smith Jr. versus Maxim Vlasov on ESPN at literally the same time. How about that?
Yeah. One of those will actually draw interest.
There's a show Wednesday the 17th on Showtime. Janelson Figueroa Boccaccia versus Mark Reyes. And then Friday night, there's in the early evening on ESPN Plus, we have Liam Walsh versus Paul Hyland. February 20th, Adrian Broner finally has a new opponent. He's taking on Giovanni Santiago on Showtime.
It's Adrian Broner in 2021. No one cares.
Speaking of no one cares, that'll go up against the UFC Fight Night, Blades versus Lewis.
That's a very fair no one cares.
But during the day, however, we've got on DAZN and Sky Sports, we've got David Avasanian versus Josh Kelly. So that'll be fun. I might bug you about that one if it's early enough. And then in the evening, we've got Miguel Burchelt versus Oscar Valdez on ESPN. Thursday, February 25th, is Serhij Boachuk versus Brandon Adams, and I believe that's the next Ring City deal. Friday, there's nothing. There's just Friday during the day on DAZN. Italy is finally not currently under fire from COVID, so we're going to get Danielle Scardina versus Cesar Nunez.
They still kind of are. They're just kind of adopting the Floridian model of maybe we can domesticate it.
And then the 27th is the big one. Everyone's fighting. I'm fighting. Robert Winfree's fighting. Pat Mullen's fighting. Gavin Napier's fighting. Everyone's fighting.
Some of us, in fact, fighting each other.
The ghost of Muhammad Ali, Jack Johnson. Everyone's fighting on the 27th. It's amazing. That's obviously the Canelo. Okay, I'm going to try to pronounce his name for real this time. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Canelo versus Avni Yildirim on DAZN. Did I do it?
Yeah. Good job.
All right. They've also got Carl Frampton versus Jamel Herring. Hey, for those of you into the death matches, there's no holds barred 10.
Stop that.
There's Stephen Ward versus Cam Scheibek. Kunyan Javiz God Spaghetti.
Oh God! Never stop desperately trying to pronounce foreign names.
There's a fight night: Reyes versus Boccaccia Polish.
Oh God! Oh, that hurts my soul.
And if you want to get up at 3:00 in the morning, there'll be a fight over in the New Zealand part of the world. We have Joseph Parker versus Junior Fa.
Okay, for the record, it's Dominic Reyes and Yuri Prochazka.
Right. Yuri Pierogies. Got it.
You xenophobic goiter. He's Czech. He's not even. It just occurred to me, I don't even think he's Polish. I think he's Czech.
Look, if I can't pronounce the last name, he's clearly Polish.
I want to confirm that but off the top of my head, actually, I'm pretty sure he's. I'm gonna confirm that because I don't want to be a total chode about it. But sorry, which date was that?
It was the 27th.
March 27th.
No, Dum February 27th.
That's it. Yuri Prochazka. Yeah, he's Czech.
Terrific.
He's from the Czech Republic.
All right. Speaking of the Czech Republic, tomorrow is the Royal Rumble.
Those two things are not related at all.
We will be reviewing the Royal Rumble on February 2nd. In the meantime, we'll also be doing a review of All Hail Megatron. Myself and Robert Winfree will take a break from doing alternative commentaries to review Outside the Wire on Damn You Hollywood. We will be doing the Metal Hammer of Doom on the 4th. We're looking at the new Weezer album, Okay, Human.
Weezer's still a thing?
And Weezer is still a thing. And then
I refuse to believe that. There's no way Weezer is still a relevant thing.
Just put out a new album, sir.
That does not... Active does not equal relevant, sir.
And then they're doing their tribute to Van Halen later this year called Van Weezer. That's coming out in May.
The worst Van Halen song is better than the best Weezer song.
I love Weezer. They're one of my favorite bands. Anyway, so...
That doesn't actually refute my point.
So, Friday, February 5th, before Knucklemania, myself and Chris Bailey will be reviewing AEW Beach Bash. You can check out the archives. This isn't the only alternative commentary we've done this week. Myself and Robert Winfree also did alternative commentary for the much ballyhooed World Heavyweight Championship fight between Trevor Bryan and Berman Sturman.
Okay, for the record.
Storm and Norman, Berman Sturman.
For the record, there was neither ballyhoo nor a recognized world title up for grabs as it pertains to that fight.
It wasn't even a Cub Scout merit badge.
I still have old Boy Scout merit badges that are worth more than the belt they gave that guy.
So yeah. We did that. We did WWE Superstar Spectacle. We did the last couple of issues of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic. We did the final season, or part, whichever you like, of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. We reviewed progressive Italian power metal band Labyrinth, Welcome to the Absurd Circus. And that's it. That's all.
A distinct lack of circus music on that album. I was disappointed.
So was I. I really thought it would be a lot more fun to review. And that's it. That's what's going on in the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. What do you got going on in your world that I haven't already covered?
Again, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, if you're into that particular sport, most Sundays. This coming week, Jeff is intermittently on the show as life permits, because, life is a crazy thing.
Life is but a dream.
Yeah, sure. We'll be previewing the aforementioned Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov card as the UFC is back full swing in one event every week for the next eternity.
Yeah.
So we'll have a preview of that. Last week we reviewed UFC 257, the big pay-per-view where Conor McGregor made his return and was summarily stopped in the second round by Dustin Poirier. So you can find our full review of that event, as well as news related to the MMA world. Let's see, I did kind of an impromptu appearance on Source Material a couple of weeks ago. Mark said, "Hey, I need someone to come talk about this Star Wars comic," and given that part of my non-monetary contract states that I have to be on deck for all of Mark's emergency circumstances, I found it, read it, and then said nothing about it because there was nothing worth saying about it, but I was on the podcast.
Yeah, that was a fun show. Hey, what'd you guys think of this? It stinks. Terrific. What are we going to talk about for the next hour?
That's kind of how that went, yeah. But you can find us talking about that. That was a lot of fun. That was you, me, and I believe Sheehan, right?
Yeah, Chris Sheehan.
Sheehan, okay. Yeah, so, again, that was fun. As far as that went, something bad. If you have to ingest some kind of bad material, at least getting to bash on it publicly takes some of the sting out. So we talked that. We have a Damn You Hollywood coming up on Tuesday for Netflix's Outside the Wire, which I kind of was supposed to watch today, but the day, got away from me a little bit. So I will be sure to watch it before we review it. Because otherwise, what would I be? Well, then I would be a professional reviewer cashing a paycheck from Variety.
Variety, actually, who said Carey Mulligan wasn't pretty enough for Promising Young Woman. That's still my favorite review of this year so far.
And Promising Young Woman isn't even a good movie.
No, it really wasn't, but that's such a mean thing to say. You're not pretty enough to pull off what they pull off in that movie, madam. And then they were made to apologize for it.
I'm not one of those guys who goes in for public apologies that people don't mean and are forced into, but you know what? You kind of should have apologized for that one.
Yeah. If
a giant portion of your critique is, well, you really want an attractive person to play this kind of role.
What's funny is I think I saw on Twitter that somebody actually came out in defense of Variety. They were like, no, judging somebody by their looks in a role where your looks are dependent on the role being believable is a valid criticism. I was like, that might be true, but shut up.
Well, hang on. It can be true, but how do I say this? My issue with Variety is less that they said one of those things that, everyone's like, well, we all know it, but you're not supposed to say it out loud. It's more the execution of it.
Right.
Like the fact that they went out of their way to go, this ugly broad. Like there's a, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the movie where she's like the quasi vigilante after she's been
she wasn't
sexually assaulted.
No, it's not her. It's her friend that it happens to. But yes,
whatever. That's the basic setup.
Yes.
For the record, to any jackass out there saying you got to be pretty to make this work. Most people who commit various acts of sexual assault, I'm just saying, they're... I hate to say this as though, because this is not meant to be demeaning.
This is supposed to be plugs is what it's supposed to be. How did we get here?
You know what? Well, let's just do that instead. I'll save bashing on Variety for talking about Outside the Wire when I'm sure some loser from that particular publication of ill repute has an uninformed, ill-defended opinion that I can tear apart.
Sounds great.
Point
done now?
There's a way to make that point without being a total jackass, and Variety just managed to stumble face first into every possible bit of jackassery related to the point.
Here's the thing, and this is my only word on this, and we really do need to wrap this up. It was an unnecessary criticism.
Yeah. That... Given what you've told me about the movie, what other people have said about it, and what I think of Variety and their film review staff, unnecessary strikes me as an apt description for the entire existence of Variety.
But where would I get my "this movie has once again been moved" news then, other than in Deadline?
I'm sure there are other publications of significantly better reputation.
A Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Box Office Pro. All right, I'm
No. Keep going. I want everyone to understand just how pointlessly redundant the existence of Variety is.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us on yet another alternative commentary of an alternative commentary of an alternative commentary. For Robert Winfree, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.